So I guess
Perfect.
So the first question is, why do we care, right? I kind of always throw that out there. Why does levelized cost of energy make a difference? Anybody out there already have some ideas? So think about the debate that, that goes on and will continue to go on about, is solar cheaper than wind? In the long term, is wind, cheaper than nuclear? I mean, there's all these questions. And so you have to do the old, if you're going to do some financial analysis, you have to do the old apples to apples. So essentially, that's what levelized cost of energy is to look at the total cost of a particular source of power generation on a per kilowatt basis. So you can make a corporate decision if you're looking to invest capital to build some type of generation, and then B, to actually do these comparisons so that essentially we know what the facts are if we're comparing, let's say, wind to solar or wind to natural gas fired power plants, those types of things. So again, I thought this particular site, they have a ton of great information from a standpoint of all things finance. And I thought that their definition was really pretty good. You can see it's used to assess and compare alternative methods of energy. The LCOE of an energy generating asset can be thought of as the average total cost of building and operating the asset. Okay. And again, represented on a per unit electricity generated across that project's lifetime. So you can see also alternatively levelized cost of energy can be thought of as the average minimum price at which electricity generated by the asset is required to be sold in order to offset the total cost. So you have, as I said, you're looking at two different things. You could be comparing different types of electric generation and see which one has a lower overall lower cost of energy, or in this case, it's an evaluative study to determine whether or not the current power prices, current and forecasted power prices, will justify actually investing in this particular generating asset. So you can see here, it's fundamental calculation using the preliminary assessment of an energy producing project. It can be used to determine whether to move forward. And as I said, it's the present value. So we're talking about present value of the total cost across the life of this particular project divided by the in total forecasted electric generation. Everything's reduced to a per kilowatt basis so that we have apples to apples. Let's just see here. So you could say it's used to determine if a project is going to break even. So it's important calculation to find out. See, so this is, I guess, to my point about everything that we talk about today, that we debate about, sort of, we tend to want to pick winners and losers moving forward in terms of energy. And so again, it says it allows financial analysts to compare different energy producing technologies such as wind, solar, and nuclear, allows for the comparisons regardless of unequal lifespans. In other words, everything's going to be brought back to present value and converted to a per kilowatt hour generating cost. So these are the inputs, and then I've got this template that they give out, and they've got an example here, which is really pretty simplistic. Once again, if you have the correct inputs, right, garbage in, garbage out, if you've got the right inputs, this template is great for running project economics. So you've got the initial cost of the investment, and then you've got this again. From the business perspective, you obviously have to know what this is. You got to have some type of estimate of the maintenance and operations that are going to go ongoing. Is there fuel involved? If it's a coal plant, is it natural gas fired plant? You're going to have not just fuel, but you're going to have escalators for that fuel. Nuclear power, yep, there's going to be some fuel, fairly cheap as you move forward. And then the total output, it's going to be the sum of all the forecast electricity that can be generated. And then, again, right, in terms of financial models, we're always looking at interest rates. In this case, they're talking about the discount rate of the project because you are calculating a net present value. You're bringing those dollars today and converting them into a cost per kilowatt hour. And then, of course, the life of the system. What is the expectation? You're building this particular facility. It could be a wind turbine. It could be a solar farm. It could be a natural gas fired combined cycle plant. Now they have a fairly complex formula there, but what's great is there's an example, and then they've given us this template. So here's this hypothetical wind turbine. So they're estimating it's going to cost $1.5 million. Operating and maintenance, O&M's $300,000 per year, and they've put on an escalator. So they're estimating that they think, you know, that 2% is a reasonable escalator for the O&M costs. Again, right, this is just an example. You know, if you were to do this today, you'd probably have to bump that up given what we know inflation is running. Wind, there's no fuel costs. Okay. In this case, they believe the turbine is expected to live the lifespan of the turbine is about 10 years. And they believe that the model of this particular generator will produce 3 million kilowatt hours a year, or 3 megawatts. And they use a discount rate. Now, discount rates are generally, they're an internally determined. The company, you know, essentially you think of discount rates, they're also, they're talked as, they're sometimes referred to as hurdle rates. You know, what's the internal rate? Or sometimes, you know, we refer to them as the opportunity cost. So in this case, again, the business has to decide what the discount rate's going to be. A lot of times, you just look to the market for what borrowing rates could be, for instance, the Fed rate. Or like I said, internally, a company will set a hurdle rate. And so let me see if I can switch to one other sheet real quick and show you what that looks like, because it's a really great simplistic template. Oh, sorry, that's not the spreadsheet. We'll get right back to that. Here we go. Can you see the spreadsheet? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you. I was seeing both of them. So you can see the inputs in the upper left there, right? And notice what it says. These are assumptions. You know, the initial investment cost, $1.5 million. Now, that is going to be, especially in light of the Infrastructure Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, there are, we know, tax incentives. All of those would be removed before you put in the cost. In other words, this formula, you're not going to throw tax incentives in here. You're going to net those out of the initial project costs. And then the operating maintenance costs, in this case, they're showing 100,000, 2% growth rate. Again, that's internally determined. What do you believe the escalator should be for the business moving forward? In this case, because they're talking wind turbine, you see there's no input of fuel. The output is forecasted to be 3,000 kilowatt hours per year. Project lifespan 10 years, and then they're using a discount rate of 8. So again, this is a simple financial model. When you put those inputs in, it calculates out. You can see basically the investment, the O&M costs spread out, and then what they're essentially saying is, so this thing calculates net present value of all those costs. And then the generation, you can see the total output across 10 years, they estimate to be 17,352 kilowatt hours. So then that they convert the net present value of all costs rolled in across the 10 years. They divided that by the total number of kilowatt hours, and it comes up to a 12-cent per kilowatt hour levelized cost of energy. So if you have this project now, if you're building this, obviously you want to know what can you sell power for? Because obviously if you can't sell power for better than 12 cents a kilowatt hour for the next 10 years, this project is a no-go. Or if you're trying to compare this with other forms of generation, you now have a common factor to use in those comparisons. And that's really it. It's not all that complex. It's a financial model that's set up, and you just have to make sure you know what the inputs are, and that you have you have all the inputs, and B, you know, in case of corporations, you have to make some of these determinations, obviously these assumptions to put this in. So questions. It's really kind of a common sense thing when you think about it. But the tricky thing is, this is financial modeling. You're using net present value.
Yeah, I like this spreadsheet. I was looking at the NREL site, Tom, and they were in the renewable energy cost and performance. They use capacity factors and things like that. I guess that's inherently built into this.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly right.
Yeah. All right. Questions for the financial guru?
Yeah, if you guys are working on one of those projects, this is, you know, and you have to do this, this is a good little model.
All right, who has heartburn out there? For some reason I can't get it to the gallery view. There we
That's
go.
because I was sharing, Michael. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Back to you then.
And I think the goal here, in talking with Anne, and as we've done this in the past, as you look at those examples, you know, as Tom said, you've got to make some assumptions and try and find the best, you know, input data you can. But the success of this, you know, this case study that you're going to submit is not dependent on whether you've got the exact numbers, you know, correct across all of these. And Tom, correct me if I'm speaking incorrectly here. I think the goal here is to give you a feel for how, you know, how this LCOE is derived, and for you to look at that in terms of the particular technology, rather than, you know, it won't come out to within the cent or the dollar or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. It's the concepts, you know, and again, you notice that spreadsheet, it says assumptions. These are assumptions that are being made. So you play around with the different rates and the different inputs. So yeah, it's not about, you know, oh gosh, there's some correct answer. It's just something to be able to utilize to come up with an LCOE should you ever really need to compare or make an investment decision.
I noticed, Tom, on the discount rate on the NREL site, they say for federal projects use 3%. Is that a good, you know, if that's a good guideline?
Yeah, I would think today, you know, given the Fed rate right now, I think that's probably appropriate. Sure. Okay. Yeah, I think the discount rate here on this little example, I mean, that's a pretty high one. Right. But also the escalator, you know, given what we know about inflation, that escalator 2% is low. You know, the Federal Reserve's trying to get us back to 2%, and we're hovering around, you know, 6+.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question regarding the project. Noticed a few of those examples were either pretty broad, just maybe touching more on the technology, and you were kind of specific to an area or a particular focus project. Just wondering which way, or are they both acceptable? Just trying to think through whether to try to hone in on an exact location and project, or keep it more broad.
Yeah, I think, Matt, both acceptable. You'll in terms, are you asking about the examples that were up online on the?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I mean, I think one person did something very specific like wind in Guatemala. Some person did, you know, a broader one to biofuels. Yeah, we really want you folks to run with it and not constrain you to anything.
Okay, thank you.
We've got plenty of time now until the 15th. Oodles of time. Anybody else got any questions or issues?
Yes, I was checking online. I could not see where we could download the spreadsheet from.
Ali, there should be a thing there that if you go to that one page where it explains it, there's a thing that says download template.
I don't see that on the one pager.
Okay, well, I sent it to Professor Slattery. He can send that to you.
Yeah, it's on the website. It's on the website, Ali. If you go to that link, the corporatefinanceinstitute.com, it's on that link. Actually, that's a good point. Why don't I go in and download it as well, and I'll put it out in an email as an Excel template in an email. But it is on that.
I dropped it in the
website.
chat.
Yeah, I got it, Lee. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Thanks, Lee.
Certainly. Thank you guys for taking the time to go over this on a Sunday evening.
Hey, I've just got bison steaks to grill, but other than that, we're good. Let me see. Anybody else? I see there's quite a few on here, which is great. And then, you know, as always with these projects, everybody, or a course like this, you know, please don't feel like you have to work on through it and then, you know, without any feedback. You know, I'm not the LCOE expert by any stretch, but I know that Ann and Tom, I'm just going to assume that Tom, because he's been so great so far, would be happy to entertain questions or an email or something along the line before the due date.
Sure. Yep. Anything to help.
Yeah. Anything else? I don't see any red flashing lights or. Let's see. Oh, that was the chat link. Yeah, great. All right. Well, that sounds good. Tom, thanks. I appreciate it. Again, also for
Pleasure.
taking it on a Sunday evening. And please, folks, just communicate with us, you know, how things are going and fire some questions away. As I say, Tom and Ann are the financial side of things. But if there's anything else that comes up, I'd be happy to jump in and help along the way as well, if I can.
Thank you, guys.
Good.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I'll post this recording online as well. I'll put it on a link just now. Thanks, gang.
Great.
Take care.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. You bet.